Welcome back to another episode of Pig's Ear in Review here at the Tojo Dojo, one of the only shows where we're talking about what we've been watching, playing, and reading. I'm Myshtuff, Riku Rose. How's it going today?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Oh, good. Can't complain. We got a couple of exciting things to talk about today. So we got Thor, Love and Thunder, which just came out hot off the press.
Yeah.
We got first take from you. So we're going to be talking about that. We got another thing that just wrapped up a couple days ago, or no, actually yesterday, season finale of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Then we got Lightyear.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got The Offer. So we got a lot of Disney and Paramount things here today. So interesting stuff from both studios.
Mm-hmm.
Battle of the studios a little bit. So, but yeah, before we start though, if you haven't watched, make sure to like, subscribe, comment. Let us know what you think about some of the stuff we talked about last time, but then also for some of the stuff we're about to talk about today as well. So with that, let's just kick it off since we got a lot to talk about. Over to you for Thor.
For Love and Thunder, I've been excited for this one, and I don't really get as excited for MCU movies as I used to anymore. Sort of after Endgame, I've sort of felt like that's, I guess it's a series, MCU. It's sort of been a bit like, you don't really know where it's going at the moment, whereas we all knew at Endgame where that was going.
Yeah, it just seems like they're in one giant epilogue right now, and they're not quite sure how to handle it.
Yeah, and I feel like there's like 15 different threads, spreading out, and I have a hard time believing they're all going to come together. I wouldn't be surprised if we end up having like 3 or 4 sort of bigger stories, but not one big one like we did. And obviously, we've talked about him before, Taika Waititi. I'd say one of the most exciting directors coming through at the moment. Loved Thor Ragnarok, love Jojo Rabbit, love What We Do in the Shadows.
Our Flag Means Death recently he's in, not just because of directing, but acting as well. He's great.
Yeah, and this is the worst Taika Waititi movie I've seen.
No, don't tell me why.
It's a good movie. It is a good movie.
Okay, all right.
But this is...
I mean, when you set the bar so high with him, I'm sure anything that's less, you can notice it.
Yeah, he has gone too hard into the comedy angle on this one, to the point that the pacing just feels weird in this movie. Now, it's actually quite... all we ever do is moan about how long movies are. Right. This one's 2 hours.
Okay.
And I was like, going into it, I was like, oh, okay, that has me excited. Okay. But
it's telling when you get excited at movie length.
Yeah. I'm like, I've been around the sun a few times now. I've not got as many trips around as I once had. I need every moment now. I can't waste any.
Exactly.
So I got to say, but what's weird is that this feels like it wasn't properly fleshed out. I don't know if it was COVID, because I know this was a movie that got impacted by COVID and stuff. I don't know if it's because the MCU doesn't know where it's going, so they're sort of like in this weird ebb and flow. But it's very strange, this movie. Christian Bale, for instance, gives one of these best performances I've seen, which is off for him.
Well, that's what I was going to say. One of the biggest things that I've been excited about this is Christian Bale, because I love Christian Bale. Like, American Psycho is probably my favorite movie of all time, and any other movies he's been in, he's just a phenomenal actor. So I was excited to see him join the MCU.
Did you hear when they asked him about joining the MCU?
Yeah, and he was like, "What the fuck is it?"
Yeah, he was like, "I have no idea what the MCU is. I've not joined anything." Yeah.
Exactly.
Which is hilarious when he comes in and he's the most charismatic and amazing thing on the screen. But what?
Well, yeah, and I was going to say, I saw a really quick red carpet interview with him yesterday, and it was just a quick clip of him, and someone I think asked him something about his demeanor being very calm, and he was like, yeah, contrary to what I look like, I'm actually a pretty excited guy. But he said it in the most deadpan way possible, and it was the funniest thing. I love Christian Bale. It's so funny.
Yeah.
Anyways, go on.
What's annoying is he's in the movie for probably about 10 minutes.
Oh,
and he's the
okay.
main villain.
Yeah.
Like, you more get told about the stuff he's doing or threatening to do than actually see
Hmm.
any of it.
Hmm.
Like, you normally in like the MCU shows, like and movies, there's like quite a bit devoted to the villains, and it's a shame
Yeah.
that they don't do that for someone who's probably one of the best villains they've had, and that's more because of Christian Bale's
Hmm.
acting than the actual
Sure.
character himself, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But this is it: is Christian Bale's barely on the screen, and also I don't think many people told Christian Bale the tone of the movie because he is going for this. It's like his version of the Joker from The Dark Knight,
Interesting. Like
right?
he's all in, like
Yeah,
super
he
evil.
is
Yeah.
into it. He's loving it. You can tell he's having the time of his life. You can tell,
Hmm.
like, if this weren't a comic book movie, like, people would take
Hmm.
this a lot more seriously. And then
Yeah.
every single other person is in a Taika Waititi comedy without the dramatic moments. Because what
So
Taika,
the tone is kind of off a little.
yeah, even anytime they try to do something serious, and there is some serious stuff in there. Like, I don't think this is a
Hmm.
spoiler because it happens in the first 5 minutes, but Jane is
Hmm.
dying of cancer,
Okay.
right? Anytime they try to touch on it and it gets serious, they throw a
Hmm.
joke in. And, like, I feel like with Ragnarok, I laughed at every joke,
Hmm.
right? I don't think there was, I can't remember any jokes really falling flat. I
Yeah,
would
it was a great movie.
say a good 50 to 75% of the jokes in this actually fell flat for me.
Oh, so not even just the joke itself, but the fact that it's like undercutting even serious moments of like just to like throw something in.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, a lot of them are a lot more juvenile jokes and stuff, and they've really
Hmm.
flanderized like Thor because
Okay.
it used to be funny when Thor was silly because
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
like this.
Hmm.
It's like a Shakespearean actor in a bar, you know, like he's like over the top and stuff like that. But now he's just a goofy dude.
Yeah.
You know, it was funny to see him be silly before, and now I
Hmm.
don't think it's that funny anymore because that's just what his character is.
Yeah, like the shock of him changing the first time was probably like the unexpectedness of it was like, oh my God, this is actually really funny. But now that it's just like it keeps doing it, maybe not as much. But like,
Yeah.
I guess I don't like how do you pivot back from something like that? Like, I don't know.
Well, Taika Waititi is great at drama. Like, one of the reasons Jojo Rabbit was like one of my favorite movies of the last like 5 years
Hmm.
is it shifted so great from like serious
Yeah.
to funny. Like, you've seen it, right? Where
Yeah, yeah.
like the
Yeah, I love
Germans
it.
come in to inspect the house, right? And they're all going, How Hitler," and like
Hmm.
that's
Right.
funny. But the fact it's still scary that they're in that house and it's still tense.
Yeah, exactly. It was written very well. Well, I guess okay. So to be fair, and I'm not 100% sure on this, he didn't. Did he write this movie or did he
Yeah,
just direct it?
he wrote it with someone else. I saw in the credits at the end.
Okay, because I wasn't sure if he maybe came in at the last, not the last minute, but if he was
Hmm.
purely doing directing. But okay, if he helped with writing too, then
It
okay,
won't
maybe not as
surprise me
much.
if he's kind of stretched himself because it feels like Taika Waititi's doing and in everything at the moment.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Like, he's making a Star
Hmm.
Wars movie. He's
Right.
done this. He's acting in stuff. Yeah,
Directing,
directing
writing,
TV
like
show. Like,
yeah.
he directed an episode of The Mandalorian. He starred in that.
Yep. Uh-huh.
Um, it wouldn't surprise me if this just didn't get the love and attention for Ragnarok, because you got to think that was the movie that kind of made him what he is now.
At least more mainstream, yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
like before that, he was known, but he wasn't like the new up and coming director in Hollywood.
Right, right.
So I doubt he devoted as much time and love to this as he did the previous one. Um,
Hmm.
but that's the shame of it, is I think this could have been really special.
Hmm.
Even the dramatic moments, just stuff like Jane's cancer and stuff, they could have really put that in the script more and had it have more meaning. But they just
Hmm.
undercut it with a joke that takes away from it.
Hmm.
And it's like, oh, Jane left me and she left me a note, and it's because Thor was always off fighting the world. Like, no, you could have had it be that she left him because she was dying and she didn't want him to, whatever, like, something like that.
Yeah, it's a shame too. Like it seems yeah, I don't like I said, like the tone just seems off or maybe they're the idea that they have to have constant jokes, just maybe they weren't sure what audience they should play this to, because like obviously the other Marvel movies are funny too, but like not all of those are like straight jokes all the way through. It's just more of like an action-y
They're not
type of
as
movie. So
juvenile jokes either. They're normally little quips here and there.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, whereas they seem to make the joke of like Thor just being a doofus every 5 seconds.
Yeah, yeah. So back to the comment really quick of like just the general direction of Marvel right now. So does this help or hurt any of that in terms of what direction they're trying to take all of
No,
this, or not really?
the post credits, which I will say, the mid credit scene. I know as
Hmm.
soon as you see this, you're going to text me because of someone who appears in it.
Okay.
Okay, like you're going to leave the theater and be like, "Oh my god, it's this person," right?
Like in excitement, you
Yeah,
think,
yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
oh, okay. All right. I thought you
Um,
meant like sarcastically, like, oh God, he's in it
no,
now.
no, no, no. You're gonna like text me and be like, but yet again, it's opening a new strand. It's not like
Sure.
tying anything in. It's like, and this will be where another storyline goes. Like nothing
Okay.
in this feels like it's tying anything in.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah. Um, another
I can't
thing.
wait.
Yeah. Another thing as well is like in Thor Ragnarok. I'm sure you remember they play the Immigrant Song like 6 times by Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
My favorite band is Guns N' Roses, and this doesn't have one Guns N' Roses song. It doesn't have two Guns N' Roses songs. It doesn't have three Guns N' Roses songs. It has four Guns N' Roses songs.
I think it's in the trailer too, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sweet Child of Mine
Yeah.
plays. Now, I
Uh,
love Guns N' Roses. Don't get me wrong. I like had a big goofy grin when I'm like watching this. The
mhm.
issue is that it made the whole music and everything feel a bit samey.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I would have liked a bit more because you see like the poster for For Love and Thunder and it looks like a heavy metal album from like the
Yeah.
80s and stuff like that.
Mm.
I would have liked them to get some like Motley Crue and Def Leppard and things like that to really
Yeah.
set the tone. But it just felt like, oh, here's another new music video for an old Guns N' Roses song.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, because like even I know obviously with James Gunn and Guardians of the Galaxy, like
Hmm.
that music was a whole selection of things, which was really good.
Hmm.
And I guess even in Ragnarok, I'm trying to think of what other bands I just
I
honestly
think
don't
it's just the
remember.
Immigrant Song. I think Taika
Was it? Oh,
Waititi just
okay.
picks a song he likes, just repeats
Oh,
it all the
okay.
time.
Okay, so then that could be it. Yeah, I can get what you mean by that. Well, it's also especially with Axl Rose. He has such a distinct voice too that like if you just keep hearing it over and over, I'm sure it'll get to
Yeah,
you a
there's
little bit.
also like a kid like at one point wearing a Guns N' Roses shirt. There's literally a kid who says that his favorite singer is Axl Rose. There's a kid who has a
Mhm.
poster of Guns N' Roses, like all 6 year
Hint,
olds
hint.
do. Um,
Yeah, clearly.
but yeah, no, I've been pretty negative. I feel like, but for them, there is something that's really cool, and I did enjoy this movie overall. Uh, there is a fight scene about 3/4 of the way in. That's
Hmm.
probably the best visual looking fight scene the MCU's ever had.
Okay.
Just what they do with how the scene looks and stuff like that is like really good.
Hmm.
Um, you can't really say what it is without spoiling it, but people will kind of understand once they see it. And that
Yeah.
is something obviously Taika Waititi is also good at. He's good with the way things look and the style of stuff.
Yeah,
He's
visually, I
great.
mean, Ragnarok looked awesome, and then this looks of similar kind of thing. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But overall, I would give it a thumbs up. Like, I know it seems pretty negative, but that's just because I've loved everything else Taika Waititi's done so much, and he's kind of put such high expectations on himself.
right.
But if you like the MCU movies, you're going to enjoy this. It's just not one of the best ones, which is kind of what I was expecting going in.
Even though it's not one of the best ones, would you still say it's above average?
It's in the
Or
middle. It is
in
in
the
the middle.
middle. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, really that comment the nonstop comedy is kind of taking away from it a little bit then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Um well yeah, I did have a question, but I feel like anything I ask you is just gonna be a spoiler. So all right, fair enough. But yeah.
Go on. See. We'll see.
Well, I was gonna say like yes, as we've talked about, the general direction for the MCU is still up in the air a little bit. But like as far as Thor as the character, I mean, is there room for continuing with that character? I mean, if that's a
Yeah,
spoiler, it's fine. Okay.
yeah, there's room.
Okay. All right. So,
Actually, another negative I will say about this movie is legit about 4 times in this movie,
mhm.
people have death scenes and then they're fine the next scene.
uh,
Yeah, like to the point where you're just
hmm.
like, oh, right, wow, that's bold. And then they're fine. And I'm like,
Yeah.
and it kind of like, I thought a few times, I'm like, wow, I didn't expect that. And I'm like, oh, because it didn't
Mm.
happen. Okay.
Yeah. Because it didn't
Um,
happen. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
which
Uh,
yeah is kind of annoying because by the third or fourth time I'm just like, okay, like I don't even
yeah.
care
Nothing
anymore.
matters anymore at that point. There's no stakes here.
They're not
So.
Uncle Ben or anything.
I hope one day he'll be brought back. One of these days. Wait, is that who appears in the mid-credit scene? Is it Uncle Ben?
It says, "For with great power comes great responsibility."
Perfect. Can't wait. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely gonna check this movie out. But yeah, that's a shame though that it's not as good as it could have been. But yeah, that's all right. You got to miss every once in a while. It can't be
I'm
all A
still
pluses.
excited for like Taika's next directed movie and
Yeah,
stuff
yeah,
like
yeah.
that. Obviously,
Yeah, yeah, it's understandable. Not everyone can be perfect. It's okay. Cool. All right. Well, that's good to hear then.
yeah,
Okay. So, Star Trek, your favorite topic. Yeah.
this
Yeah.
is pure vodka.
Yeah, just keep downing it. All right, so I'm not gonna repeat everything I said the last time we talked about it. So for anyone who wants to hear more about like the most recent uh, Trek of shows on Paramount Plus, check. I think it was maybe 2 or 3 episodes ago. I talked about kind of the recent wave of like not a reboot, but just bringing Star Trek back with different shows and all that sort of stuff. Some of them are okay. Some of them
The
are
latest franchise they've milked to death.
yeah, more or less. But when I talked about it last time, that was when episode 1 of Strange New Worlds just came out. And just from that first episode, very optimistic. And I had said it was really good. But obviously, I'm curious of what they're going to do with it. And now, 10 episodes later, season 1 is over. So I can honestly say that this is probably the best Star Trek in the last 20 years, honestly, like without question.
For those that don't know, I'm not like I don't really know much about Star Trek.
Sure,
I
sure.
know there's a Vulcan and a Klingon and
Here's
William
one of them.
Shatner,
Yeah, yeah.
and up until like 2 or 3 years ago, though, had there like not been any Star Trek other than the J.J. Abrams movies for like 20 years?
Yeah, so a lot of people say like the golden era of Trek was like the 90s where you had Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and then you even had Next Generation movies as
Right.
well. In the mid 2000s, early to mid 2000s, they had another prequel series called Enterprise, which was only a few seasons, and it was fine, but it wasn't like the greatest thing. After that, then it was the J.J. Abrams movies for those 3 movies.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, which I think between that and when Paramount and CBS started bringing it back with these shows, there was a good, what, 4 or 5 year gap or something like that, something
Mm-hmm.
roughly. So, yeah, there was, sprinklings of it over the last
Okay.
20 years, but really the last like 5 years has been, like I said, these shows that have been coming back for bringing Star Trek back. But Strange New Worlds, as a brief recap, is essentially a prequel to the original series, which Discovery was also that, but they took it in a very different direction. This is more tied into what the original series characters were. Like they actually bring back a lot of the original, or sorry, not bring back, but like there's original characters, not the same actors, that are reprising or
Mm-hmm.
bringing back some of these characters, I should say, but as a younger version. So they're still like up and coming,
Oh, they don't
trying to
get an
figure
80-year-old to do the digital de-aging.
that would be an interesting tactic if they did that with William Shatner. I would love to
Yeah.
see it, but no, thankfully they did not. So some of the characters, I mean, I'm not going to try and spoil anything, but like there's some of I mean, some of them are very clearly like in the trailer and stuff. Like that's not a spoiler of some of the characters they're bringing back, but there are other characters that they also brought back that were surprises. But I will say they did it in a very tasteful, like good way, and not just shoehorning shit in for the sake of like, oh, I remember that. Oh, I remember that. As we've
Mm.
talked about before, like a lot of reboots and stuff, they'll try and do that. And so, like with Star Trek Discovery, which gets shit on quite a bit, like it was fine, but I think it wasn't very much what people were hoping for bringing Star Trek back. Well, one,
Mm-hmm.
because it's a very like season long arc type of show, which is like a lot of TV shows do that now. It's just one giant arc, whereas typical Star Trek is more like week to week. There's a new adventure, even though there's like a thread that goes through all of them, of course. It was a new adventure each week. And so that's what this show is. It's
Yeah.
finally back to what people literally have been asking for decades now of like, can you give us a show that is week to week, like fun adventures? And yeah, there's still a common thread that goes through it, but there's this new, exciting, like optimistic, like go and explore and do crazy shit. And
Yeah, I think
so,
there's certain
yeah,
franchises and series where like they call it Monster of the Week, and a lot
yeah,
of people
yeah.
use Monster of the Week as like an insult towards a show.
Mm-hmm.
But there's certain things where it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like Seinfeld, I know completely different, right? But like Seinfeld, there's that one season where they're like writing a show,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't think that's as good as just one of the best things about Seinfeld is you can put on a rerun, and it doesn't matter what episode it is, you're there, you understand
Yeah.
what's going on, done. And like Star Trek, from what I've understood, has always been kind of that as well. And there's the odd
Yep.
thing here or there,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like you get the point. It's there again on an adventure this week, right?
Yeah, like when you watch The Next Generation, anytime there was a two-parter, it was like, holy shit, things are going crazy here because of a two-part episode.
Yeah,
Whereas the other shows like Picard or Discovery, they're like I said, they're season-long arcs, and it's just like, like if it was done with an interesting enough story, maybe that would have been different. But the stories they've introduced haven't been like super gripping.
hmm,
So, funny enough, to test that theory, I had my wife watch an episode with me the other day of Strange New Worlds, and it was like episode 8 into out of 10 episodes. So, like, she has not seen the show at all. Yeah, she's watched Star Trek with me from time to time, but for all intents and purposes, she has not. She doesn't know what the show is. So I showed her a random episode. She loved it. Like, she was like,
yeah,
"This is a great show to watch," because like it was. Yes, there was stuff I may have had to briefly explain of like, "Oh, who's that character?" But the story of it was just a good science fiction story, and
yeah,
it was interesting to watch. And I will also say, like, not that every show has to be happy and optimistic, but like this show is the first show in a while where I was like smiling the whole time watching it. Like every
hmm,
episode, even if there was like a sad episode, there was still funny parts or interesting parts of people talking to each other. And I think that's like, regardless of if you like Discovery or Picard or whatever, the thing that the show does incredibly well is characters, and just they talk like real. Well, I was about to say humans, but some of these characters aren't humans. There's some aliens thrown in there as well. But they're talking like real people who are like, they're giving each other shit. They're playing with each other. Like one, there's this one character who's kind of like telepathic, and she like, people always want to ask him of like, oh, can you read minds or whatever and do all this stuff, and then someone asks a question and the alien says, oh, like, or no, the alien says something, but then the one woman says, oh, did you know I was going to ask that because you were telepathic? And he goes, no, it's because everyone always asks me that. Like stupid, like little fun quips
yeah,
like that, of like just funny banter. And then of course, like, it's a cool looking show as well, so the effects are great and everything. But ultimately, like, without going down like Star Trek lore here for another 3 hours, like, it's just a fun show to watch. And I guess the other thing that I was interested in as well was, okay, of course I'm gonna like it just because this is something that I'm gonna enjoy. But I was curious, and before we started recording, I looked online of like, how is this show reviewing now that the season is over, just in like in a general sense. And I couldn't believe that. Okay, Rotten Tomatoes gave this a 99%,
oh,
which blew my
wow,
mind. Yeah, 99% critics review from Rotten Tomatoes. IGN gave it a 10 out of 10, which, like, they're the kings of giving everything 7 out of 10 for like ever. So they gave this a 10 out of 10, which like I couldn't believe either. And then I watched some, like, I looked at some other, like, Variety and all these other places. Like every freaking outlet is giving this like a damn near perfect score.
wow,
And
yeah,
so, like I said, obviously I'm gonna like this, and if you can't
yeah,
tell, yeah, I'm gonna give the show a thumbs up. But like, I was just surprised at like how many people who don't like Star Trek or just aren't familiar with it were also saying like, man, this is just a fun show to watch. And so that's where I'm going to kind of stick by what I mentioned last time, which when only episode 1 was out, was if you want a good introduction into Star Trek, but like in a modern sense without having to go back to all the older stuff, definitely start with this show, because it's not so ingrained into like the canon that you're going to be like lost. I mean, there's a little bit of that and you'll enjoy it if you're familiar with it, but if not, it's still a fun show to watch, and each episode is something different, but they're like good kind of classic science fiction style stories, and it's something you can enjoy. But I will also say there's like legitimately 2 or 3 episodes in this first season where I was like laughing out loud at some of the stuff that was written too. So like it's funny, it's dramatic, it's cool costumes, cool stories. Like I mean, I can't think of a bad thing to say about the show, honestly. I mean, it was. I personally think it's the best Star Trek that's in the last 20 years. I mean, and it sucks. And the thing, it sucks to say, because like I know they're working hard on those other shows that have come out in recent years, but it's taken a couple of missteps, I think. But I will also say that this show would not exist if it wasn't for those other couple shows, because it actually does tie into Discovery a little bit for how these characters sort of came to be. But for all intents and purposes, you don't really need to watch that if you don't care that much. So yeah,
I'm sensing a thumbs up.
I would give it a thumbs up. 4 fingers up, Vulcan salute. Right
I'm
here.
done. I'm done.
Yeah, out. You're out. Just calling it quits. Yeah, this is the last episode of the show, by the way. We're done after this. So yeah, like I said, definite thumbs up. And it's kind of a shame that it's sort of, that's the one thing I will say with a lot of streaming service shows that are exclusively like on that versus TV, is I feel like it doesn't get as much notice as it could have.
Yeah, I actually was reading, I think on Reddit the other day,
Mm-hmm.
and it was people talking about like streaming and like how it's more just the old people who have cable now, right?
Yeah.
And there was this guy who said he went around his dad's house, and like
Mm-hmm.
his dad loved old like Star Trek, Next Generation, and stuff like that. And his
Yeah.
dad just doesn't like care about the internet or anything
Yeah.
like that, because he's like this 70-year-old man. And they started talking about Star Trek, and his dad had no idea that there's like 4 Star Trek shows currently on, but he can't
Right.
watch any of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like I've told that to people, also to some other people who are at least familiar with Star Trek, and I'll start talking about how the new Star Trek's coming on, and they're like, "Oh, like you're watching like the reruns or the movies," and I'm like, "No, there's like legitimately new week to week Star Trek going on right now." But because it's not on TV and Paramount Plus, I think Paramount Plus is becoming better. Like I'm surprised with how much content I'm finding on there, but it's still not like a Netflix or a Hulu just yet, or even a Disney Plus, I
I
would
don't
say.
even think Netflix is a Netflix anymore.
Well, that's fair. That's a good point. Yes, they're
They had
also losing
Stranger
traction.
Things and like 2 other bits in the last year, I think I've cared about.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe that'll change as streaming continues to be more and more popular. Not that it isn't popular now, but like it is just, it sucks that, because I think it's not as popular as this show could be. But then again, maybe this is the show that will get people to come in and watch and subscribe and all that sort of stuff.
That's also the issue, though, with so many streaming services. Like, it is
Hmm.
ridiculous expecting people to subscribe to 10 different streaming services.
Yeah.
And even if you're a big Star Trek fan and you're only subscribing to 2, it's still a big
Yeah.
ask to make Paramount Plus one of your subscriptions. There's so many
Yeah.
options. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I've said this before. That's why I actually rotate between my streaming services, and as shows finish, unless something new is that interesting that's coming up, then I'll just cancel it and then resubscribe when something else happens. So to be fair, even with Paramount Plus, like yeah, there's plenty of other crap that I've watched on it, including the next thing I'm going to be talking about. But once that's done, I don't typically have a reason to just sustain like keeping it at all times. So but then again, I'm sure that's why they're going to switch around their schedules. Like I'm starting to get this feeling that like all these services are like they could release all sorts of stuff probably all at once, but they're strategically placing it out, of course, so they can keep you subscribed. So I wouldn't be surprised if Paramount Plus starts doing that more and more than they already have. But
Here's what I wonder is like, what's Netflix been around for like probably 15 years at this point?
yeah, at least, yeah.
How many dead people's bank accounts are they still pulling from?
that never unsubscribed.
Yeah, like, and no one knows the password. So.
They just have a steady revenue stream forever.
Yeah, if they have like $5 million a month that just comes in from dead people.
That would be pretty funny. I don't know how you would calculate that, but that would be hilarious to see.
No, this person hasn't watched anything in 10 years, but they've stayed a loyal subscriber.
Let's keep it subscribed. They might come back. You never know.
Yeah.
That's funny. So, anyways, on a tangent there. But either way, yeah, thumbs up for Star Trek Strange New Worlds, both for fans as well as newcomers alike. I think not just best Star Trek in a long time, but I think it's one of the best like sci-fi shows that's been around for quite a while. So I'd recommend it.
Nice. Well, I'm going to talk about the next sci-fi epic.
All right. Let's hear it.
Lightyear.
Nice.
Which is not a sequel or a spin-off really to Toy Story. Everyone got really confused about this movie.
Okay.
I don't know if you did. I thought it was something else that it wasn't. It turned out it wasn't.
I was going to say, I don't know anything about this, but I'm assuming it's about Buzz Lightyear and something about his backstory, I guess.
Well, a lot of people didn't know whether it is Buzz Lightyear. Like, there was miscommunication. Is it about the real person the toy is based on?
Oh, I see.
Things like that. And the film opens, like, in 1995, a boy named Andy got a Buzz Lightyear toy. It was based on his favorite movie. This is that movie.
So wait, it's an in-universe movie?
Apparently.
Okay, all right. Fair enough.
Now, this movie ain't bad, but if this is Andy's favorite movie, he's not got great taste.
Well, he's what, like 5 years old, or how old is he at that time?
10, I think.
Oh, okay. I mean, fair enough, but yeah.
So, this movie is straight. Like, it's kind of nice because this is like the most serious movie Pixar have done.
Okay.
Like the most straight movie they've done, right? It is kind of like a sci-fi epic. Mm-hmm. I know they have their serious moments. Like the first 5 minutes of Up is just like
depression.
Yeah, but seriously, that's probably some of the best storytelling. Just that like 5 minute, like best directed storytelling, like in movies. That is up there with some of like the Tears in Rain in Blade Runner and like of things that you could say as like best things in a movie ever, best storytelling, right?
Yeah.
This just really middling. It's just like very okay.
Okay.
Nothing bad. Nothing great.
Yeah. It won't offend anyone.
No, I don't know. There's people who got angry that there's a gay kiss in it.
Oh,
yeah.
Great.
Which is like a peck on the lips, which, I've got straight friends who have done gayer things.
It's perfect, yes.
Yeah. It's a tough movie because it's something where you sort of go, it feels very pointless because it feels like they want to build this up as a universe, which based on how it's done, I don't think that's going to be the case because it cost apparently like $200 million to make and it's like just made that back. Like 200 million, not even like the double the budget that most movies need to make.
Sorry, is this in theaters or Disney Plus?
Theaters, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, apparently like the opening weekend it came second. And like Jurassic World still came first, even though it came out the week before.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah, so it's not done great. Taika Waititi's in this.
Of course he is.
Yeah, this is a Taika-themed episode.
Clearly, yes. What is he playing? Some brand new character? Or?
Yeah. Buzz Lightyear is the only character that you're gonna know, and
I guess that's
Spoiler: Zurg.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not really a spoiler. He's in the trailer.
That's fair.
It's not very funny, this movie. It tries to be at times. It's not very emotional. It tries to be at times.
Man, you're really selling this thing.
I didn't see the twist coming.
Okay.
But it wasn't a great or bad twist.
like twist in a Lightyear movie. I can't imagine what that would be.
Yeah. It was fine. I just have a hard time. It's kind of weird because Pixar's known as like being the gold standard of animation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but this is probably on the level of like Cars when I saw that and I didn't care about it much.
Well, sorry, in terms of story or the actual visual, like the look of it?
Oh, the look of it, it's like the most visually like amazing movie that
Oh,
Pixar have
okay.
made. Like it looks like real at times, like the landscapes they make and stuff. And you don't realize it in your head, but when you go back and watch like Toy Story 1, how like PlayStation 2 that looks now.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was cutting edge then, but yeah, now it looks hilarious. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's just the story's very bleh.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a bad movie. I would give it the softest thumbs up I could give it,
Okay.
but I don't get what the point of this movie was.
To make money. I mean, it's a kids' movie at the end of the day,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, but it's not even that kiddie. Like some of the jokes are a bit juvenile and stuff like that. But
Okay.
I, even after watching it, I'm like, you could have made a more fun, like Woody cowboy movie.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah,
like
well, I guess that's a good point because once again, I feel like this movie could be in another one of those situations where like a lot of kids grew up with Toy Story and now they're adults, but they might want to see their character again. But then
yeah, but
maybe
they don't
young
want to see
kids,
them like this. Like more people got excited for Toy Story 4 than they did for Lightyear.
yeah. But I guess at this point, like, how many more Toy Stories can they keep doing, I suppose? I mean, I'm sure they
Yeah.
could, but so maybe they're trying to, yeah, like you said, making this universe, and because everything needs to be a universe now, and so this was like, all right, I guess
So
we'll try this.
The real Lightyear's gonna team up with the real Woody.
It's gonna be a real Flintstones meets Jetsons type of
Just a
situation.
potato in the corner and an actual pig.
See, now that I would like to see.
Yeah.
It's only a matter of time. I mean, Disney does live action stuff, so we'll get a live action Toy Story one of these days, guaranteed.
Yeah, I've never thought of that. It's probably going to happen, isn't it?
It'd be weird, but it might
Do you
happen.
see that? That's like something I think they could do is like remake the first Toy Story with like the modern look because you could
Hmm.
keep the same voices and everything.
It's so weird to think about because obviously remakes are of course a thing, but now we're talking about a remake of a purely computer generated movie. So like that's just weird to think.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah,
remaking a video game at that point.
yeah. I mean, I don't think I'd be adverse to that as long as they actually kept it consistent. Like the thing people didn't
Yeah.
like about the special editions with Star Wars is that he legit changed stuff
Right, right.
and it was pointless stuff and it'd add scenes and yeah. But if you
Yeah.
could, I think you could up-res like Toy Story 1 and put it in the theaters and make some money that way.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. All
Yeah.
right.
It's kind of a shame this is just a bit of a boring one to talk about, to be honest with you.
I mean, have they made announcements of like there's more coming from the Toy Story universe or not yet?
No, there's 3 post-credit scenes.
Jesus.
Yeah, my wife was like, "I need the toilet," and I'm like, "You can go." I'm like, "I'm just gonna sit here and watch it and whatever." And it was like
Mhm.
right at the very, and they tease a sequel, but based on how it's done, I don't see it happening.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, critically, I'm assuming probably mid reviews as well from most places.
Yeah, I've not checked off the top of my head, but I think like it got around 70 something. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I'm
yeah.
wondering if like kids genuinely enjoy this movie or not, or if they even care at all. But yeah.
It just seems a weird one to me. I
Hmm.
just don't get. I think you could have gave Pixar like Black Panther and
Hmm.
had Pixar do their own Black Panther movie, and it would have been more exciting, you know.
What about the change in a voice actor for Buzz?
It happened. Like this is what I mean with this movie. It's one of those ones where it's hard to feel passionate about anything with this movie. It just sort of exists. Like Chris Evans doesn't do a bad job. He doesn't do a great job.
Hmm.
And like I can't say while I was watching the movie, I'm thinking, "Where's Tim Allen?"
Hmm.
Yeah. As much as I love Tim Allen, like,
Yeah. Uh, exactly. No
um,
grunts from Buzz. Yeah.
yeah, I don't think it would have been any more charismatic, any more groundbreaking if Tim Allen had been the voice.
Yeah.
It just feels
Yeah, I
it,
mean,
it
yeah,
feels
I
like
don't
a
think he was going to
very
carry the
unneeded.
movie.
No,
Yeah, sorry.
it just feels like a very unneeded and a movie in 2 years we're all going to go, oh yeah, that happened.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, just content for the sake of it. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. All right.
All
Well,
right,
I
so
can't
thumbs up, I
say.
guess.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say I'll be watching it anytime soon, anyways, but maybe one of these days I might if I'm truly needing something to watch. But all right,
Hmm.
fair enough.
All
Okay,
right, over to you.
so I'm going to be talking about the limited series called The Offer, which, unf- well, really quick, I will say unfortunate timing because literally yesterday saw news James Caan passed away, which is very sad. So, phenomenal
Hmm.
actor who was in the Godfather movie, first one, and maybe a little bit in the second one, but then also in Misery and Elf. Great
Hmm.
range of acting that this man could do. So it sucks, unfortunately. Just passed away yesterday, but very timely for the thing that I was going to talk about today, which is, like I said, The Offer. So before talking about it, though, I have to ask one question because the answer to this question is going to, I would think, greatly affect whether or not you even care about this show, which is what are your thoughts on the Godfather movies?
Never seen it.
Yeah.
I started watching The Godfather one night,
Hmm.
and it was like 11 p.m.
Yeah, bad idea.
And that was it. It was like 20, 30 minutes in, and I just could feel myself going and not
Yeah.
like really paying attention. I was like, no, I need to go to bed or whatever. And
Mm.
I just have, like, what I
Hmm.
saw seemed good and everything. I just have never gone back to it.
Yeah, I mean, do you think though at some point it's something you would like to watch,
Oh,
or you're
yeah,
just
yeah,
not
yeah,
really
yeah, yeah. It
interested?
is one of those movies where I'm like, I've actually got to watch this at some point.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm the same thing where there's a couple of movie franchises that are like gaps in my movie knowledge that I occasionally still I'm chipping away at. So yeah, it's totally understandable. Um, so this series, it's 10 episodes, roughly an hour per episode, sometimes less, sometimes more. Is about the making of the first Godfather movie, and
Mm.
so when I first saw this being advertised on Paramount Plus in between Star Trek episodes, I got to be honest, I had extremely low expectations. Not because I thought like it's a bad idea, like the actors were bad or they would maybe even have a bad idea, but I'm like, this idea of a movie or a series about a movie,
Mm.
like, is that really needed? Because the one time I can think that it happened before, funny enough, was with The Room, and then they made the movie The Disaster Artist about The Room. Like, have you seen either of those? Or
Yeah, I've seen both. Yeah, yeah.
okay, so like, okay, neat idea. And granted, that was a very weird, unique situation with The Room. So I'm like, okay, that's kind of a funny idea. I get it. But I'm like, how often can this idea work? And other than like The Offer, I'm trying to think, like, have there been other ones that have done this? I can't remember.
Not off the top of my head, I can think about. When there recently that Netflix movie with Gary Oldman where it was about writing Citizen Kane?
I think you're right. That
Mank?
sounds familiar.
Mank. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. So, like this idea, I guess, hasn't been done too many times, but I think the trouble potentially could be that you have to have a really interesting
Oh,
story.
Saving Mr. Banks. The Disney movie
Oh,
about Mary
you're right.
Poppins. Yeah, 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 yeah. I just
You're
thought of that
right.
one.
So, okay. So it has been a couple then. So
Yeah.
I haven't seen that one though.
That was good.
Um,
That was good.
okay. Nice. Maybe I'll have to check that one out too. Because, like, so interesting. Okay. And even though I'm saying this, I will say for me personally, I'm the type of person that likes, uh, how can I say, seeing how the sausage is made, so to speak, of like behind the scenes, and which is like last time when we were talking about Moon Knight, I had said like on Disney they have like a 1 hour like supplemental type of thing of, oh, how did Moon Knight get made, and they do that with some of the other Star Wars and MCU shows. So like I love watching that stuff. Just I don't know, for whatever reason, it's just interesting to me. So with this show, it's not a documentary; it's a fictionalized show, but it's told through the recollections of the actual producer of the original Godfather. Like he's the producer of the Godfather movie, but then he also is a producer on the show because he's still alive.
Hmm.
And the show centers around that guy when he was trying to produce the Godfather. So it's purely I shouldn't say purely, mostly told from recollections from this guy, but then also other like news stories that were around the time of the movie getting made to tell a complete story. And so, like I said, the idea, my expectations were low because I'm like, I don't know what to expect from this, but I actually was surprised with how much I enjoyed the show. Like it kind of. Uh, I knew the story was goofy with how the movie got made, but I didn't realize just how insane it was. And
Mm.
granted, you could argue that like some of the stuff in it, maybe the dude made up. You know, it's this guy's own word that you have to take of like some of these things very much happen. Like there's news stories about some of the stuff that you could easily look up. But then the more like intimate stuff about how he had to literally work with the actual mob in some aspects to get this movie made because of like there was pushback from the Italian community at the time of like they were going to make the Italian community and especially the mafia look really bad with this movie.
Mm-hmm.
But then they ended up working through it, and it obviously got made. But the inner workings of like how this producer had to make this happen was just crazy. And the other part I didn't know is the guy who produced it. This was his first movie he produced, and prior to this, he was actually a programmer at like some computer company, and he was like, I hate doing this, I want to go produce movies. And that's part of the story of like how he got into Hollywood as well.
That's how you do
So
it, kids. You just
just
decide one day.
yeah, pretty much. I mean, fuck, in the 70s, do whatever you want. I don't know if that'll happen as much today, but that's basically what he did,
Hey,
which I
James
thought was
Cameron was a truck driver and then just decided one day I'm going to make a movie.
yeah, I mean, it happens from time to time. So it is fascinating to see that. But what's also cool about it is, in addition to like that part of the story, and then you have the mob, the other part that they talk about, and it's interesting that they did this because it's a Paramount Plus show. They actually talked about Paramount themselves, kind of going through a bad streak of movie releases and how they were getting close. To being like sold off essentially, and how the studio was just not doing that great either.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just this interesting story of all these different groups of trying to get this movie made, and then you have like young Francis Ford Coppola, who's like trying to do his first movie, and he's like this crazy like control freak of trying to do everything correctly. And the other cool part is you have these actors who are playing a young Al Pacino and a young Marlon Brando, and actually a young James Caan as well. Who are it's weird. They're like trying to do impersonations of those actual people, but then they're also trying to act the part in the movie too. So it's
Mm.
like this weird inception of like they have to like impersonate multiple people, and they the guy who, for example, who does Al Pacino, like a young Al Pacino, he does a really good impression of him. A little bit different than Bill Hader's like old man Al Pacino impression.
When he just started yelling all the time while acting.
Pretty much, yes.
Yeah.
This one is a little bit more nuanced, but it's funny because you see them trying to recreate a couple of like the more iconic scenes from the movie, and so it's just I don't know. It was really interesting to see because obviously now in 2022, which is I think it's the 50th anniversary actually this
Mm.
year, which and they timed the release with this. It's obvious to go back and like yeah, of course Godfather was this incredible masterpiece and won all these awards. Like yeah, like how could anyone ever doubt that this movie was going to be good? But then you watch the show and it's like oh wow, this movie could have turned out so much differently with like script edits and location changes and the people that were being involved and shuffled
Mm-hmm.
around. And that's kind of what they're trying to show with this show is that it could have been an absolute disaster at like any minute if it wasn't for a couple of very important things happening. So I thought like okay, that's pretty interesting personally.
I mean, most like masterpieces and stuff aren't smooth sailing. Whenever you read
Yeah.
like the development about any stuff, like your favorite movies, it's not like, oh yeah, we all had a great time filming this. It's normally like
Yeah.
people fell out, people didn't believe in it.
Hmm.
I because of the 50th anniversary of The Godfather, I know like Francis Ford Coppola has like done loads of interviews,
Hmm.
and it was actually like kind of funny and kind of creepy the way he talked about it. He said that he said that he was editing it, right? And he asked like the editor like, what do you think and that, and he said, well, hopefully your next movie will be better. Like while they were,
Hmm.
and he went home and he said, and the guy was like, oh, okay, so like, what did you do to turn it around? Like the interview, like,
Hmm.
what did you do to turn the movie around? He
Yeah.
said, well, I can tell you one or two things. He said, I can tell you that on the way home that night, I came across a man who promised me everything would turn out okay and it would be the best movie ever in exchange for something. Or I could go in the next day and work on it a bit more, and that's how it became the movie it was. And they go, "What did the man want?" And he just said,
Yeah.
"What does the devil always want?"
What the fuck?
Yeah, and he would say, and then
That part.
he wouldn't elaborate on it any further. He like,
Jesus, I mean that part definitely was not in the show.
yeah,
But to be honest, though, he's definitely one of those directors that seems well because he of course went on to do the other Godfather movies, and then he did Apocalypse Now, and there's all sorts of other movies that he did. Like this dude is clearly talented, but he definitely comes off he's like a little neurotic and a little weird. So I mean, granted, I wouldn't be surprised if he was just fucking with people, but he also just might be kind of a weirdo as well,
yeah,
just like an eccentric like artist sort of weirdo, which that vibe they very much I think kind of gave off in the show, but not necessarily to that level per se. um, but yeah, I mean it's crazy because obviously it's still regarded as like one of the greatest movies of all time. um, and then it won a bajillion Oscars, and then actually I will say what's funny is the last episode is the aftermath if I can call it that, of the movie releasing, both like for the reception of it, the awards. And I don't know if you know this or not, but like Marlon Brando won an award, and he did a very famous acceptance speech in the sense that he didn't give it, he gave it to another person, a Native American woman, who essentially went on stage and called out a bunch of people, and he just rejected the Oscar basically, which is like
yeah.
a famous Oscar speech that he gave. So that was touched on. And then the producer, if you didn't know, this producer, he didn't want to produce the next Godfather movie because he wanted to do something of his own, and that's when he went on to make The Longest Yard with Burt Reynolds. That was the next movie that this guy
Wait a
did.
minute, The Longest Yard has Adam Sandler in it. What are you talking about?
Slightly different one, speaking of
Oh, okay.
remakes. And then he did a bunch of other stuff too, so like this dude had his own career as well. But like, yeah, like I said, it was just kind of a weird. I didn't think I was going to like this, but I ended up liking it a lot more than I thought I would. Not just because of the association with The Godfather, but like just the time period is always fascinating. The early 70s, just the movie industry is still, even to this day, very weird. So it's funny. I don't know. I find that interesting to see how it works and all that sort of stuff.
Did
So,
they show the backstory of why Marlon Brando has a cat?
yes.
Yes.
Yes. Well, I mean, essentially, what they said is it wandered onto set one day, and he just took it, and like that wasn't in the script. But I
Yeah.
guess what happened was he came on set. The cat walked up, and he just put it in his lap, and then Francis Ford Coppola was like, "No, just keep rolling, just let it
Oh,
happen."
I'd
Basically.
heard that they asked him to put it down and he refused.
I mean, that could have been it too. I mean,
Yeah.
this is one of those things where maybe they took some liberties
Yeah.
with the show, but they basically was like, yeah, just let it keep rolling. But yeah, I mean, and I guess that's the other thing too, is like they showed part of it where Marlon Brando, like they're trying to get him to be in the movie, and they go talk to him at his house, and like he just has this weird aura about him, and like not intimidating in like in a nefarious sense, but like he just has that presence in that room. And so yeah, I'm sure there was a part of that where people just didn't want to tell him no, and like, all right, just let him have this one.
Give him the cat.
It's fine. So like I said, I mean, if you like the Godfather movies, then definitely a thumbs up. I think you're gonna
Mhm.
love this. But like, even if you don't, or not even if you don't like them, but if you're not familiar with them or if you haven't watched them, I think there still is an interesting story to be told here. If you like just older Hollywood and seeing that type of stuff, I think it is still worth it on its own right, but you'll certainly not get as much enjoyment out of it if you haven't watched the movies. But I think it's still a thumbs up in that case too.
Yeah. Wow, we did
So
4 thumbs up today.
I know there was a lot of
Um,
good ones.
both of mine were very muted, like thumbs up, but
There's still thumbs up though. It
yeah.
counts.
Yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
counts.
They can put that on the poster.
Muted thumbs up,
Yeah.
Tojo Dojo. So, anyways, so if you've watched any of the stuff that we talked about today, definitely let us know down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, especially if there's stuff that can continue, where you'd like to see some of the shows and movies and stuff like that. Um, And yeah, we'll love to hear what you have to say. So, and once again, if you haven't subscribed, make sure to subscribe, like, and all that sort of stuff. And you can find us on Twitter as well at Tojo Dojo. So until next time, we'll see you later when we talk about some more fun stuff.
Have a good.
Take it easy.